Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Hussain Qazi, facilitator for the subject AFM SBR FM. This particular series of video is about AFM mock debriefing related to question number 1 only, and that mock already published by ACC exam for March 23 exam support. Candidates, before continuation for the watching of video, make sure that you have already attempted this mock exam with exam condition. If you haven't attempted this mock exam with exam conditions, first of all, I strongly suggest stop the video. First of all, have to attempt the exam question with exam conditions. Must have to attempt the mock exam with exam conditions. That's very much important. Otherwise, you will not be able to get any advantage from this series of session. That's a very key point. So students, the agenda, it's mentioned this particular slide. That's the video number 1. It's about the reading of the question. I will read the question and provide you support how to read the question during the exam, because reading of the question is also an art. Number 2, the video number 2, the briefing about the calculation part, and that briefing include the technical marks and the professional skill marks. Video number 3, the briefing about report writing and the theoretical content of the question, including technical and professional skill marks. So number 1, agenda number 1, reading of the question. Now let's start the reading of the question. So this is the question. If you are sitting in the examination hall and you are going to start the question number 1, so always start to read the question from the requirement. First, quick read the following exhibits, provide information relevant to the question. Introduction, the exhibit 1, the exhibit 2, bonds issue, exhibit 3, financial information, exhibit 4, Bahari project. Now, first of all, you must have to read the requirement quickly and develop the mindset what the topic of the area examined with that particular question. Just get the basic idea. Is this about the advanced investment appraisal? Is this about acquisition merger? Is this about risk? So identify the syllabus area, develop the mindset. So first, first, prepare a report for the board of directors, BOD of the Milma company. Here the question directly start with the report writing, A part. Normally, the question normally examined the A part, some theory, then B part with the report writing, then C part, some other theory. Okay, no worries. So prepare a report for the board of directors of the Milma company that explains why Milma's directors are of the opinion that the Milma's cost of capital should be based on Ziva company's ungeared cost of equity, and show relevant calculations, estimate an appropriate cost of capital. So here is some requirement about calculation and explanation as well, and that is broadly about cost of capital, something about cost of capital. It's very common examiner examine the cost of capital issue, sometimes inside the questions, but here the very apparently with the requirement. Number 2, estimate Milma company value without undertaking Bahari project and then with the Bahari project. So what it's about Bahari, it's no idea when you are initially read the question, but the valuation, something about the valuation. Valuation should be used by the free cash flow methodology, and the cost of capital part 1 included relevant calculation. Oh, okay. So question is something about free cash flow valuation. Advises the board of directors whether or not unsecured bondholders likely to accept the equity for debt swap offer. Okay, that's something about bonds and swapping debt to equity of for debts, including relevant calculation. Advise the board of directors on listing and possible share price ranges. If total 100 price million shares are issued, advise board of director on listing and possible share price range for 100 million shares are issued. The advice should also include discussion assumptions in estimating the share price range. Okay, something about the issuance of shares here. Okay, so develop a base. First, you have read the requirements, so develop an initial mindset. Okay, this is what about the report writing, and there are 4 parts. The P part, the possible impact, discuss possible impact and response, impact and response of Milma company following the ethical issues with respect to Bahari project, relocation of farmers, something about relocation, and relationship between Bahari and Milma's chief executive officer. So the second part is something about ethical issues. Total marks will split equally between each part. That's 8 marks. And total 50 marks question, out of that 10 marks. The first question number 1, including 10 professional marks and 40 technical marks. So professional marks will be awarded for demonstrating the skill of communication, analysis, evaluation, skepticism, and commercial acumen. With question number 1, you must have to very much clear the 10 marks for 4 components of professional skill marks. And believe me, some of the marks already in your pockets. That means free marks for question number 1, report writing. We will discuss that point during the session. Okay, so this is what about quickly read the requirement and develop a mindset initially. Then read the main content of the question. Mark my words, whenever you're going to the examination hall, always remember that not the 100% question, not the 100% part of the questions are difficult. Some of the part are difficult, but the majority parts are the easy parts. Examiner deliberately incorporate the hard component to twist the student. So make a rule. Number 1, read the question and quickly identify the easy marks and park the safe easy marks. Number 2, if you feel something hard, so what you should do, whatever you feel hard, you just put your best effort for the hard component. It's no worries about that, what is right or wrong. For hard component, do your best. Number 2, whenever during the examination, if you're stuck somewhere with the hard component or anything, what you should do, you must have to take the best assumption in your mind, take assumption and keep moving. Do the best, whatever the assumption you have made, and keep moving. Don't stop. The golden rule for the success of the exam is that keep moving, and at the end of the exam, you must have to attempt 100% appropriate exam. 100% appropriate exam. It's not about accuracy. It's about what you have performed appropriate exam. What you have done the appropriate exam. That's the point. Now come on. Milma company is a private company involved in aluminium mining. Okay. Whenever, another important point. Considering the last 2 exams of September 22 and December 22 with a new pattern of the exam with the professional skill marks, that have been observed that it's very important for the student to develop a mindset what is about the business case. So here the industry is aluminium mining. So you have to develop your mindset about the aluminum mining. For this point, I have already conducted a webinar sessions where you can find from my YouTube. During the reading of the question, what more thing I emphasize for the December 22 question 3 and 4. So that's important to develop a mindset accordingly. What is about the business case? Here the business case about a private company, the aluminum mining company, aluminum mining. So develop a sketch in your mind, the aluminum mining company. That's an industrial business. It's something about industrial. It's something about extractions of the aluminum or mining business. Okay, about 8 years ago, the company was bought by its management and employees through leverage buyout. Means management take up the business through leverage buyout, means the funding majority based on debts. So the funding majority based on debts, that's called leverage buyout. Due to high metal prices worldwide, the company has been growing successfully since LBO. However, because the company has significant debt borrowing with strict restrictive covenants and high interest level, it has had rejected a number of profitable projects. So aluminum mining company, leverage buyout, huge burden of the loans, rejected the profitable projects because of high debt burdens. Okay. Moreover, the bond in issue currently, the company has currently two bonds. Okay, two bonds in issue. 16% secured bonds, nominal value $80 million, which is redeemable at nominal in 5 years. Okay. Early redemption is available on these bonds. Okay, with this case, early redemption is possible without penalization. The assumption we can take here, or it's mentioned in the question, giving Milma the option to redeem bonds at nominal value immediately if it's want to. Okay. Another 13% unsecured bonds, nominal value 40 million, redeemable nominal value in 10 years. So $40 million about the unsecured bond, $80 million about the secured bonds. Milma Board of Directors has been exploring the idea, okay, of redeeming both bonds to provide it more flexible when future investment decision. So now they are considering to withdraw with these loans, restructuring the capital structure. To do so, the BOD has decided to consider public listing company on major stock exchange. And for this purpose, they wanted to list for the major stock exchange. It is intended that a total of 100 million shares will issue in new listing company. So the strategy they are considering here to become listed and issuing equity. From the total shares, this is very important. 20% will be sold to public, 10% will be offered to the holder of the unsecured bond for redeeming the bond, so equity for debt swap, and the remaining 70% equity will remain in the hands of the current owners. That's very important. If I've already done the question, this part is very important. They wanted to listing on the stock exchange, offering to the public the 20%, and will collect the cash. 10% more that will use to swap the unsecured bonds with the equity, and the remaining 70% hold by the original owners. So cash will only collect with the 20% offering to the public. Cash only collect. Okay, if unsecured bonds accept this offer, the debt convert into equity. So your debt position is now become better. And whatever the amount you will get from the public, so you will be able to repay the secured bonds of 80 million. So debt structure will also better by repaying the debts. The first one, swapping the debts to equity. Number two, the repaying of the debts. Okay. Final words. The secured bonds would be paid out of the funds raised from the listing. That's we have already discussed the secured bonds. That's the first point. Now, the details of the possible listing and the distribution of equity were published in the national newspapers recently. As a result, potential investors suggested that due to small portion of the shares offered to the public for other reasons, shares should be offered at a substantial discount as much at 20% below the expected share price on the day of the listing. That's another important point. This paragraph mentioning that um, these details published to the newspapers and the response from the investor side that because the proportion you are issuing to the public it's very limited, it's only that's only the 20%, so it's better to offer the public with that 20% discount, which further means that whatever the value of the milma, whatever the value of equity of the milma, and based on that total value, you need to calculate the per share value and then offer the 20% discount, offering the 20% discount to the company, so the investor will be able or will be interested to invest in your company with a milma. So this is the point. Okay. Third one, milma company financial information. It is expected that after listing, the deployment of new strategy, greater flexibility will boost Milma's company's future revenue, and for the next 4 years, annual growth rate 120% of the previous 2-year average rate. That's the mathematic tricks, huh? With this question, the previous past 3 data here available, past 3 data, 3 years data. So first of all, you need to calculate the revenue growth rate. Simple by historical average base method or so-called geometric mean method. Simple. And then whatever the growth rate you will identify, multiply with the 120%. So we will be able to project for the future revenues for the next 4 years because we need to work out valuation of the company by free cash flow of the future free cash flows. So we required the growth rate on all these things. So first the next 4 years and then after 4 years. After 4 years, the annual growth rate of the free cash flow company 3.5% for the foreseeable future. This is a very known calculation that people have already done with the past papers multiple times. That's free cash flow valuation first 4 years or first 4 years, then after 4 years. After 4 years, you need to work out with the delayed perpetuity with the growth concept. Okay. Operating profit margin are expected to maintain in the future. A minute silent for the prayer's voice is coming on here. A 1 minute silent. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. Thank you for your patience. So this is what about the growth matter. Number two, operating profit margins are expected to be maintained in the future. Maintained in the future. So for this, we need to calculate the operating profit margin of the past and take some average. For example, 2008 operating profit margin 58.4 divided by 389 something, whatever the percentage. Then 2007, 10, 2006. So you need to make an average. Although it can be assumed that the current tax allowable depreciation equivalent to the amount of the investment needed to maintain the current level of operations. Okay, and the company required additional investment in assets 0.3 per dollar increase in revenue for the next 4 years. And this is also very common examined, and you have already made a practice for this. Make sure you have done practice for these type of adjustment for the additional capital investment and the existing capital investment. Number one, you know very well, for the free cash flow, we need to make an adjustment of the depreciation, because with the operating profit, the depreciation already included. So we need to withdraw the depreciation, but by adding back, and then simultaneously incorporates the minus the capital investment to maintain the business position. But if examiner particular use the wording that tax allowable depreciation equivalent to the amount of investment needed in the current level of operation, that means no need to make any adjustment. The depreciation amount and the capital investment amount both are same, no adjustment. That's a key point. But capital investment adjustment only required for the additional investment. So first of all, whatever the calculation you will make for the revenues, so make a difference of the revenues and calculate the $0.3 per $1. That's the point. Okay, so this is the point. Okay, once listed, Milma company will be able to borrow the future debts. One listen, Milma company will be able to borrow future debts interest rate of 7%. This is what about the KD, which is only 3% higher than the risk-free rate. Okay, it has no plans to raise any debts after listing. No plans to raise any debts. So till now we can say that if they are become listed, so the company is 100% equity finance, because before the listing, after the listing, the debts of unsecured bonds become swept, and whatever the cash will collect from the public, we have to redeem the debts amount of the secured bonds. So the company will become the 100% equity finance. That's the pure business, purity, without any interest, no sood. It has no plans to raise any debts after listing, but any future debts will carry considerable few restrictive covenants. Okay, if they will arrange some future debts, they will then the company have restricted covenants. However, these plans do not take into consideration the Bahari project exhibit 4. So what is this about the Bahari project? We will consider now the 4th point. So during the reading of the question, number one, the very first thing, that whatever the mindset you have developed, initial reading of the requirement, always read the question with that particular impression. Okay, the impression I have made, this is something about the valuation of the company, cost of capital, all these things. So read the question to develop your actual mindset of the question based on the requirement you have read. Okay, what is about Bahari project? Now come on. Bahari is a small country with agriculture as its main economic entity. Okay, a recent global survey concluded that there may be a rich deposit of copper available. Mine extraction company is Milma. So this is potential investment. Copper available to be mined in the northeast of the country. This area is currently occupied by the subsistence farmers who would have to be relocated to the other part of the country. Relocated to the other part of the country, and you have already read the requirement of the B part, that something ethics. Okay. When result of the survey announced, of some farmer protested that the proposed new farmland where they would be moved to was less fertile and that their communities were being broken up. Oh. However, the protesters were intimidated and violently put down by the government, and the state controlled media stopped reporting about them. Soon afterwards, their protests were ignored and forgotten. Do you remember that? There is an investment opportunity in Bahari. The ethical issue is actually between the government and the Bahari farmers. And yes, we are Milma, that will impact on our business activities and ethical, consider ethical responsibility. It's of course that, but this is not direct response. We are not direct responsible. Milma is not directly responsible, but play an important role. And definitely that will, if this point is not covered, that will impact the image of the Milma as well. Okay, so this is something about this para, something about the ethics. Another one, in meeting between Bahari and the Milma BOT. Okay, the Bahari government offered Milma company exclusive rights to mine the copper. It is expected that there are enough deposit to last for 15 years. Oh, good. So project time is 15 years. Initial estimate suggests that the project will generate free cash flow 4 million first years, rising by 100% per annum each of the next 2 years, and then 15% each of the next 2 years in that. So this is what about the basic calculations. Here the data directly available, the free cash flow of the 4 million first year, rising by 100%. It's simple calculation. Use the spreadsheet functions. 100% per year next 2 years, then 15% each of 2 years after that. That's first year, second, third, fourth, fifth. The free cash flows after that stabilizes at the year 5 level for the remaining 10 years. So here, don't make mistake. Here, it's the working, it's not based on infinity. It's something limited life. Limited life. Okay. The cost of the project payable at the start is expected to be 150 million, comprising machinery, working capital, mining rights, fees payable of the Bahari project. None of these costs expected to be recoverable at the end of the life. Okay, end of the project life, 15 years. Bahari government has offered Milma company subsidized loan over 15 years for the full 150 million at interest rate of 3% instead of Milma company normal borrowing rate 7%. Okay. The interest payable is allowable on tax purpose. So this is something, the question part related to something APV type. So the question is that, can the APV content used for the valuation of the business? Why not? APV or NPV? These are the investment appraisal techniques. And if I say that, if for example, you have a company having the value of 100 million and you are going to invest in a project where you will be able to get NPV of 5 million. So what will be the value after the project? You will apply 100 million plus 5 million, sir. 105. Same case, what if the company existing value 100 million and you are planning to invest in a project and evaluate the project by APV method, and you have found it out that you have you have identified that 5 million APV, the answer, it's become 5 million of the APV. So what you will say? 100 million now value plus adjusted present value, that's equals to the 5 million. So APV method of investment appraisal will use here, and then adding the value of the project. It can be assumed that Milma company business risk is not expected to change as a result of Bahari project. This is assumption. This assumption we will consider with the calculation, and then we will challenge that particular assumption at the report content to get the marks of skepticism. Okay. At the conclusion of the board meeting, Bahari government and the Milma board of directors, the president of the Bahari commented that working together would be like old times when he and Milma chief executive used to run business together. Okay. It can be assumed that cash flows will be in dollars instead of Bahari currency, and therefore Milma does not have to take account of foreign exchange exposure from this venture. Okay. So here, in this question, there is no concern about the foreign currency. This is not considered as a foreign investment appraisal. All the appraisal is considered in the dollars in the local currency. So no concept of the foreign investment techniques or investment appraisal technique. Okay. Additional information. So you have highlighted the point that this Milma is something about valuation with the APV method. Now additional information. Milma company's closest competitor, Ziva, a listed company which mines metal worldwide. Why we are considering why the information is about Ziva or some proxy or some close competitor? Because if there are two considerable points here. Number one, with Bahari project, valuation is something based on, or appraisal is something based on APV method. And for APV, first the working for base case NPV. And for base case NPV, we required KE ungeared. Number one. Number two, the Milma company, the background of the Milma company, the complete background of the company, once they become listed, the company will become immediately after the listing, repayment of the debts or swapping of the debts with equity, they will become 100% equity finance. Okay, so for base case NPV and for 100% equity finance base, something we required that's called KE ungeared or discount rate assuming the company 100% equity finance. That's called KE ungeared. And very important, students, whenever you are working with KE ungeared, you need to work out for KE ungeared. With the examination hall, you have to think in this direction. There are two possibilities to calculate KE ungeared. By CAPM method, that means beta asset, or Modigliani-Miller proposition 2. So quickly read the information and identify by which method I have to proceed accordingly. So go for that. Ziva cost of capital estimated 9.4%. Okay, competitors. Its geared cost of equity is 16.83. Post-cost cost of debt is 4.76%. These costs are based on capital structure comprising 200 million shares trading $7, 1,700 million irredeemable bonds trading 105 per 100. Both Ziva and Milma pays tax annual rate 25% taxable profit. Candidates, here the proxy information is not based on CAPM methods. It's based on no information of beta asset, no information beta equity, no information market return. So if we wanted to get KE ungeared, then we will use the method of Modigliani-Miller proposition 2, and don't be feared. With the formula sheet, this Maudlane Miller proposition 2 formula is given. KE means geared KE, KEI means ungeared KE, plus 1 minus T, all these things. You just apply this. Don't make mistakes. It's a very norm with the past practice, past paper practice. Okay, this is what about the question requirement, main context. Finally, you have to read the requirement once again. Now read it. And now at this point, reading the requirement, emphasize and develop your clear mindset what should be the actual requirement and how I will approach the question. Come on, prepare a report for the board of directors of Milma. Number 1, explain. The 6 marks include explain and calculation. Explain why Milma director's opinion that the cost of capital should be used on Zeva ungeared KE and show relevant calculations. Estimate appropriate cost of capital. Because it's a part of the report, first we will make an appendix of the calculation of KE ungeared by Maudlane Miller proposition 2. Then this is almost about 3 marks. And the remaining 3 marks about explanation why we are doing this. Number 2, estimate Milmas, that's calculation. Value without Bahari project. Okay, so that's we will use these information of the Milma without Bahari project. And then Bahari project. Value with Bahari project, value without Bahari project. Valuation should use free cash flow and the cost of capital part in part 1. Either we are working with the valuation of Bahari project or without Bahari project, with Bahari project. Use the cost of capital, that is KE ungeared. The working with part A1. Use this KE. Use this discounted for both valuation. Okay. Advise board of director whether unsecured holders are likely to accept or equity for debt swap. Okay. So here we are working with after valuation. What the implications, the consequences with respect to the equity debt swaps. Is this swap is beneficial for the unsecured bondholders or not? With the relevant calculations, theory with the calculations. Advise board of directors on the listing and possible share price range, 100 million shares. Whatever the value we will calculate here with the part 1, 2, we need to advise board of directors the listing possible share price based on 100 million shares. And this 100 millions are categorized 20% to the public, 10% to swapping the equity for debts, and remaining 30% to the existing owners. So advice for this, whatever the value we will calculate, just divide with the 100 million shares. So we will be able to identify one share value. The advice should also include discussion assumptions made in estimating the share price. Okay. So this is what about the report. So report includes the calculation, and we can split the calculation with 3 or 4 parts. The appendix 1 for the cost of capital, appendix 2, for example, appendix 2, it's about valuation of Milma without Bahari project. Appendix 3, valuation of Bahari project and the total value of Milma. Appendix 4 for this value of the debts valuation. So that is about the calculation part. And then we will write the theory with the headings particular mentioned by the examiner with the requirement. Make a heading whatever the examiner expecting there. I will tell you what the heading you need to make. Then you have to work out with the B part. B part discuss possible impacts and response. Impacts and response of Milma to the following ethical issue with respect to the Bahari project. Relocation of the firm, ethical issue, and relationship between the president and the chief executive. And this is what about the requirement. Number 1, the very important thing, if you have attempted the question accordingly, first of all, I must have to say that ask yourself before starting the question, have you properly planned the question or not? Number one, read the question carefully. Number two, plan the question carefully, then going to attack the question. If these two things you will do, proper reading, planning, automatically your answer will be qualitative, equal to the success of the exam. So that's important. If you haven't planned the question properly, before watching the next video, must have to plan the question first, and then we will move towards the second agenda, that is about briefing, calculation part. So thank you very much about this part of the video. Wait for the next part of the video. Thank you very much. Take care. Assalamu alaikum.